Hi, everybody. Sorry we were a little bit late. We had some technical things that had to be taken care of. I just want to thank Dr. David and Sherry for inviting me from Building Strength Webinars to do this webinar for you. And I'm hoping that you enjoy it. We're going to go through a PowerPoint in the beginning, and then we will go through the some exercises to stimulate your visual perceptual system and maybe cause a little bit of visual stress. And if you get a headache from doing this, please stop and look away and just hear me talking. And then we're going to see a YouTube of a client and her parent discussing the migraines and how she benefited. So we'll start with the PowerPoint, and I'm going to go through each slide. When you download the PowerPoint, you cannot change it or alter it unless you have written permission. I want to know, does everybody see the PowerPoint? And I just want to check check my technical issues here. Okay. Okay, so we're going to go through the PowerPoint, and first of all, we're going to evaluate the symptoms of chronic migraines and headaches. And if some of you are coming onto this webinar and you have chronic migraines and headaches, you may notice some similarities and some ideologies that may be your issues. So we can discuss those. Please send your questions, and I'll be answering questions at the end of the webinar. First of all, we have medical and biological issues. Migraines and headaches can be caused by chronic toxins, allergies, and hormonal issues, sensitivities to food and smell, noise, touch, and light, eating and sleeping patterns. If you don't get enough sleep, you're more prone to to issues of stress, and dehydration. Just drinking a little bit of water in the beginning of a migraine can possibly cut off the symptoms. Structural imbalances such as posture, TMJ in the jaw, where many nerves go through to the brain. Traumatic brain injury and swelling on the brain. Muscle tension, inflammation, and visual stress, emotional stress, and changes in barometric pressure. Some of the functional issues are reading and other visually stressful academic or work-related tasks, computer use, writing and copying, sitting, standing, walking in one position or with intense movement, driving, quick movements and prolonged physical or mental activity, sports, and patterns and lighting in the environment. So if you notice the patterns in back of me, they may be visually stressful in daylight to some people who get chronic migraines and headaches. And I probably wouldn't use them in my office. Okay, here we go. Next. Headaches are a common medical complaint which can significantly affect the quality of life of the sufferer. So in terms of school days and lost work days, the effect of chronic migraines is severe and profound worker productivity. And if a child is missing school and they're already behind, it can be devastating. One of our worst fears about chronic headaches is having a brain tumor. But the vast majority of headaches are not due to life-threatening issues. Most headaches are caused by one of three syndromes, and we will discuss those later. Pain begins gradually, intensifies over minutes to hours, and resolves gradually. Headache is dull, deep, and steady, and becomes throbbing or pulsating when severe. It's worsened by rapid head motion, light, sneezing, straining, constant motion, or physical exertion. It's relieved by lying down in a darkened, quiet room. Usually pain occurs on one side of the head. So if a person in the beginning catches the migraine and goes into a darkened room, and especially if light is the issue that's exacerbating the symptoms, that can actually cut the migraine or at least lessen it. Often accompanied by nausea, vomiting, nasal stiffness, runny nose, and tearing or changes in body temperature. Sometimes visual or neurological symptoms prior to the headache are called an aura. This includes flashing lights, zigzagging, double lines, double vision, and halos. And many of them you'll recognize if you came to my other webinar, Irlen syndrome. So we will talk about the relationship between Irlen syndrome and chronic migraines and headaches. Tension and cluster headaches are other types of headaches. The tension headache is usually due to stress. You'll feel pressure or tightness around both sides of the head or neck. It can be mild to moderate with a steady pain and tenderness in the muscles of the head, neck, or shoulders. And you'll feel an incredible tension. It can go all through the whole body. Mental stress can occur prior to the onset of the headache and can occur without other symptoms. A cluster headache is severe, debilitating, and occurs repeatedly for weeks to months, and followed by symptoms of free periods. So if you're experiencing constant headaches, that's going to wear you down also with your immune system and other functions such as cognitive functioning, emotional health. The pain begins quickly without warning and reaches a peak within minutes. Okay. It's continuous, excruciating. It can be deep and explosive. It may pulse or throb. It may occur up to 8 times per day, but it's short in duration, whereas migraines can be extremely long, and tension headaches can also be fairly long. Begins on one side or around the eye or temple and is associated with eye redness and tear production, and possibly runny nose, so that might be also increased by sinus conditions and inflammation. Other types of headaches are giant cell or temporal arteritis, which is an inflammation of blood vessels, causing mild to severe headaches, typically in people ages 50 and older. It can cause temporary or permanent visual loss and other complications. Sinus headaches, then post-traumatic headaches. So in head injury, you may get swelling in the brain, and it can occur up to many, many months and can be also permanent. And if they become light sensitive, then that could be a chronic condition, and it can be taken care of, which we'll talk about with Irlen spectral filters. Dehydration, allergies, chemical toxins, light sensitivity and visual stress, muscle tension, TMJ, and there could be symptoms more serious like a brain tumor, a stroke, or a hemorrhage. So there are also like high-risk populations, so people who tend to work longer and harder to complete homework or work-related tasks, people who tend to complain of headaches and then fatigue or strain, and especially when they're reading at work or in school or with computer use, and as well as driving or other visually stressful activities. They tend to avoid reading for pleasure if they have an issue that is exacerbated by reading, and can only read for short periods of time before symptoms begin. Anxiety and constant tension are often accompanied by these headaches, and an inability to keep up. They're just inefficient. They're always like trying to catch up. They may be emotionally strained all the time, short-tempered, lethargic, have attention deficit issues, memory problems, and low frustration tolerance. They may complain of light sensitivity and wear sunglasses inside and out to avoid the bright lights. In Irlen syndrome, which can actually be a cause for migraines and headaches, There are visual perceptual issues, and this has to do with the way the brain processes light and visual information. It's neurologically based in the visual cortex. And has to do with transit or magnocellular deficits. So this is where there's certain types of cells that transmit light into the brain and then help us interpret what we see. And if they are overloaded because their light sensitivity causes stress, the timing of these magnocellular cells can be off, and they can cause a lot of distortions and a lot of stress. And if anybody would like some research studies on this issue, I can send it to them over email if you email me at oh, I'm sorry, that's my website, but I'll give you my website as well, because some of them you can download from the website, www.irlenvlcmd.com, and my email address is info@irlenvlcmd.com. And if you have any other questions that you want answered, or if you want me to send you any information, please email me at my email address. Genetic component affecting males and females equally, and there are family patterns. So people might say that, oh, well, mom had chronic migraines and headaches and always wore sunglasses inside and outside the house. And, oh, my grandfather seemed to have a short temper and always liked to wear sunglasses, and liked to read in the dark. And I have chronic migraines and headaches when I work at the computer. So you'll see a family pattern in many of the people who suffer from Irlen syndrome. The condition is varied and intermittent and exists on a continuum from slight to severe. It's enhanced by environmental stressors such as lighting, contrast, so that's the contrast between dark and light, glare, colors, patterns, the amount of print on a page, and the demands for continuous performance. Here are some of the symptoms related to scotopic sensitivity syndrome or Irlen syndrome. First of all, you have light sensitivity, and they're bothered by glare. Fluorescent lighting makes it much worse. So often my clients will come in and complain and notice their symptoms with fluorescent lights. Bright lights, sunlight, whiteboards, or driving at night. They have discomfort or difficulty concentrating or working under bright lights or fluorescent lights and using a computer screen. Inefficient reading, difficulty reading print, numbers, Scantron sheets, maps, diagrams, or musical notes. And those actually can produce the symptoms of a migraine or headache if they are working very, very hard and very stressed. Looking at and trying to make sense of those things. Problems may include print that shifts, shakes, blurs, moves, double vision, disappears, so you could see the word and then it disappears and then it comes back, or becomes difficult to perceive. Their reading rate may be slow, with an inability to read letters, numbers, musical notes, or words in groups, and they have problem tracking objects when you move your eyes, such as if you would move your finger in front of you and track, there might be a jerkiness or pain when they move their eyes. Correctly identifying words or ability to skim and speed read. They may have attention deficit issues, so problems concentrating while reading and doing schoolwork, and may have difficulty staying on task. They need to take a lot of breaks and look away, so reading becomes very inefficient, work becomes inefficient, and they become very restless and fidgety or tired. And that may also have some sort of behavior problems related to that, because they're on high stress level and very low tolerance for activity or sensory input. They experience strain or fatigue. They're feeling the tension, fatigue, they may be sleepy, have headaches, and it's exacerbated by reading of the other perceptual tasks. The strain can interfere with the ease of reading, studying, or even listening. They may have poor depth perception, so a lot of people who go into a headache, they may complain about not being able to see, go up and down stairs because they can't perceive the depth accurately and are afraid of falling, and then they become more tense. They have an inability to accurately judge distance or spatial relationships and may be unsure and have difficulty with escalators, stairs, sports such as catching a ball, hitting a ball, driving. They may have depth perception issues, so when they go around cars or parking, and they may get dizzy or nauseous, and handwriting problems may also result. Here are some of the treatments that one could try to alleviate migraines, and I also have an vision exercise chart that I can send you over email if you email that, from Deepak Chopra, as well as Chinese medicine, and I'm very happy to send it to you. First, nutrition and diet. So because allergies may tend to exacerbate headaches, just finding out what type of nutritional issue may come about, such as maybe an elimination diet to see which foods are allergens. Maybe there's environmental allergens like dust and molds. Herbal therapy, homeopathy has been very effective. Then you have the physical exercise such as yoga, breath work, and also mental exercise such as meditation, relaxation techniques, vision exercises, and brain gym, which is something that I use a lot to help people de-stress and help their brain and their body work together in a better way. Medication, biofeedback, chiropractic, osteopathy, cranial sacral, Irwin method, which we will talk about, lighting changes, environmental changes, and acupuncture. I'm just adjusting the camera here for a little bit. Okay, magnets have been very effective for some people, and you may want to share some of the other options that you have come up with in your experience as well, and you can do that through the question and answer section. Okay, visual stress and distortions contribute to the occurrence of headaches and migraines. Visual processing problems change the way we see, and that causes a lot of stress. So with somebody experiencing a visual distortion, and that which leads to stress and possibly migraine or headache, this is what they might be seeing, but this is what they want to see. It has nothing to do with acuity. Glasses won't help. It has to do with the way that the brain is processing information. When it's under stress, distortions can occur. Here are some of the distortions that you might see when you're experiencing a chronic migraine or headache, or also you might see this all the time, and that it may lead, the stress of reading with these kinds of distortions may lead to a chronic migraine or headache. First, this is rivers, where the white starts pulling out of the back of the background, and you start seeing patterns instead of the written information. And you blink your eyes, and it calms down the white, and you can see again, but then again, the white starts pulling up, and you see many, many patterns. This is called washout, and it is where the letters start looking like they're kind of washed out, and you might blink your eyes again, and it may become clear, and then it starts looking like it's washed out. You can read like this, but it becomes very stressful to continue reading. This is called blurry. It has nothing to do with acuity. It has to do with the way the brain is processing visual information. So you might see parts of the page blurry and parts of it sharp. You may see the letters get blurry as you read longer, and then you blink your eyes again and it gets clear, and then it gets blurry again. And the doctor tells you, well, I corrected your vision. You have 20/20 vision or whatever, corrected vision with glasses, or you have no issue with acuity, so you don't need glasses, but you're still saying things are blurry. This is shaky, and in shaky, the letters start shaking as you read, and it can get worse, and it can get very nauseating. This is the halos, where you see a slight ghost around the letters. They're just not looking clear, and they can actually look like double letters. This is called the swirl, and in the swirl you have where your two eyes meet, the letters are in focus, but then everything around starts moving and swirling around. This can cause nausea and actually vomiting, and it can get worse with movement, such as on an airplane or a car. Seesaws. This is where the letters actually start shifting and moving and falling off the page. And these are actually static pictures, but if you look on my website, you'll see them in a dynamic movement. This is Star Wars, where the letters start looking like they have depth, and so the close-up letters are larger, and then it looks like you're in a tunnel as you're reading. And these is where the letters are actually floating off the page, and you can blink and they come back on the page, but then they start floating off the page again. Anybody recognize any of your symptoms? And this is called the wavy. This is where you might be reading and the letters start moving, or you could look out in the horizon and things just don't look straight. That should be straight. They have almost like a heat wave look about them. And in some cases, buildings can look like they're tilting, and it's not the Leaning Tower of Pisa. And roads look like they have distortions. Rugs look like, and floors look like they have, they're not straight and flat. And this is also waviness. And I'll show you this is a computer-generated picture of someone who has Irlen syndrome, who learned to read and function looking like everything was heat waves. So you see that around the glasses, everything looks like heat waves. And when she put on her spectral filters, which are uniquely geared to her need and her brain neurobiological processing, it straightened out the lines. And you'll see on the bottom, it looks like the road is like caving in, the cars are caving in. And this was a description that this young woman gave to a computer graphics programmer and was able to simulate her distortion. And there is a mind-body connection, and unfortunately a lot of children and adults who they perceive themselves as have learning problems actually have a light sensitivity problem, and many people with learning problems do experience chronic migraines and headaches. So one of the things to do is minimize physical and sensory stressors. Try to relax, find ways that feel good to you, whether it be soft music or aromatherapy or, some way that, exercise, stretching. Brain Gym is a wonderful way, and hopefully I'll do another webinar on Brain Gym, but you can look up Brain Gym on YouTube and look up Brain Gym exercises and PACE, capital P, capital A, capital C, capital E. That's a wonderful 4-step relaxation exercise, and I use it on myself, I use it with my own children, and I use it with my clients, and I use it before every session. It tends to refocus people and have them relax. And I've also used it with my clients who have chronic migraines and headaches to just periodically do this during the day when they're starting to feel a lot of tension. Improvements in overall mental, physical, and emotional performance and stress management. So there's many, many ways to manage your particular stress, and learning those techniques and then following through and maybe getting a mentor to help you is a great way to, kind of counteract the symptoms before they get too great. And improving your immune system can also be wonderful and helpful, and also just overall health and wellness. Improvement in learning and working, so learning how to pace yourself, learning how to take exercise breaks and stretch breaks, turning down the lighting, and getting, just getting an environment that really makes you feel good and relaxed can actually help a lot. What is stress? It's the in terms of what we're speaking about, the environment can cause stress. There's many ways that it can cause stress, whether it be chemical, lighting, smells, allergic reactions, causes a reaction, and then the body it causes stress in the body. And the more stress, the greater the level of just, inability to create organization in the body and to recharge the body, and then overload. Environmental stimuli can place demands which exceed the brain's ability to cope. So some of the visual stressors that we work with in scotopic sensitivity syndrome, or Irlen syndrome, are environmental stressors. So lighting, glare, bright colors, high contrast, tracking moving objects, patterns and stripes, details, sustained attention, and continuous performance. So if you have any of those issues that you can name, you may not have noticed, but they may be partially the cause of your chronic migraines and headaches. And many of these environmental stressors and visual activities can cause over and underactivation. So finding a balance between what is helping you stay alert and feeling comfortable in your body will be a great preventative technique for helping you manage your migraines and headaches. And you don't want to get to this level. This is where, the migraine is uncontrollable. So we want to be able to get to the place where we're managing it and not overstressing ourselves to the point where it is unmanageable. So many of the parts of the brain that can be stressed through different issues, and also these are the functions that these particular parts of the brain are regulating. So if we can manage what we're doing, we can actually help with regulating our brain function. And there are certain exercises, such as in brain gym and other and kinesiology, where you can actually help integrate those parts of the brain through the work that you do in your body. This is from the Amen Clinic, and these are brain scans. They're called SPECT scans. So the one on the left is a brain that's very, very stressed. You see a lot of hot spots, a lot of bright red spots. And then immediately after the implementation of Irlen spectral filters, which helped use color to calibrate the nervous system, calm down the nervous system, you see a more normal brain, normal functioning brain. So you see a less stressed out brain. So this is what we want to see. We don't want to see the stress that comes before the chronic migraine and headache and then is uncontrollable. Okay, we're going to keep going here. Okay, the mind-body connection, it's a vicious cycle. You have the environment, you have activities that are causing stress, and there's auditory stress and tactile stress and smell stress, and then you have perceptual stress, so the way your brain processes that and is obnoxious and difficult to integrate because it is not, you're just not feeling good, and it basically causes different reactions in your autonomic nervous system, your endocrine system, your immune system. So you have allergies and other issues, and in your neuropeptide system. It causes changes in your cortisol levels, which are the stress hormones, serotonin levels, dopamine and hormones, and which is the cause of difference in brain chemistry, which in turn causes a lot of other issues, such as psychological issues, disturbances in conduct, which because people have poor self-regulation because they cannot handle the stress, dyslexia, ADD, and then we have a host of other symptoms that can be the cause. We have studies in job performance, so when you decrease the stress, job performance has gone up, and accuracy in job performance. So these were using Irlen filters to decrease stress, and it showed a significant improvement to do their jobs once that visual stress was minimized. And I don't know if you realize, vision affects almost all of your body. Vision affects your auditory system, your vestibular system, which is your balance, motor coordination. It affects your entire body in terms of overall tension and well-being. And it's very hard to control your environment when you're visually stressed and light is constantly bombarding you. And sunglasses do not always take care of the problem. And especially in Irlen syndrome, where you have people wearing sunglasses all the time and they're still getting their migraines and headaches, because it just decreases some of the light, but it doesn't take care of the deep levels of stress that are happening inside the brain. And what we do is we use color, carefully calibrated. There's tens of thousands of combinations of color that are unique to the person's neurobiology that do the greatest level of relaxation to the nervous system. And you'll actually see the person, when you get the right color, they'll just go, and you'll see their whole body just start relaxing through the visual system. That's how powerful our visual system is, and how powerful it is negatively when we're stressed, and how powerful it is positively and affecting the whole body when we can control the environmental stressors through our visual system. And these are some other studies. We'll go through this more quickly. It tends to have a familial relationship. There's a comment by Harvard Medical System. Now we'll go over the use of these, the Irlen process for chronic migraines and headaches. It's a sensory processing intervention. It's a stress management tool, and it's immediate. The benefit, there's no question. There's a self-test that we'll take at the end of this PowerPoint where you can see which symptoms we can address with the Irlen process, and that it's basically, there's no therapy. It's just, it works or it doesn't work. It's an assistive technology intervention. First of all, the first level is the screening. And this is for overlays. These are plastic sheets that go over the written material, and it's only for people whose migraines and headaches are exacerbated by reading or working at the computer, because you can put the overlay over the computer screen. It takes about 1.5 hours, and it only addresses visual stress when reading or working at the computer screen. There are certified Irlen screeners all over the world, so if you want to find one near you, just go to www.irlen.com. That's Irlen.com, and look for a test center near you. They're all over the world. There's thousands of screeners, and there's probably about 60 centers around the world that do the diagnostic testing, which we'll go over pretty soon. The screeners have a bachelor's degree or higher, and they participate in a 14-hour training plus continuing education to maintain their certification. There are only 10 colors of overlays, and these are plastic sheets that go over the written material or the computer screen, and there's a matte finish and then there's a glossy finish. So we try to see which one makes it clearer and more comfortable for the person to see. Sometimes the overlay, which is a $7 intervention, is enough to cut the symptoms, to decrease the distortions and increase the comfort enough to address in a major way the headache issue. But it may not be enough, because if the person is very light sensitive, you're still having light coming through into the visual system. So that reflected light when they're reading or when they're working at the computer screen is addressed minimally. And as I said, there's only 10 colors and then combinations of those colors, so there's not that many combinations. But at least it's better than nothing. And it's a very inexpensive way to address the issue. The next level, if that's working, is diagnostic testing. In diagnostic testing, you're going to be using spectral filters, which are colored lenses worn as glasses or contact lenses. And it takes about 2 to 4 hours to test. And in some cases, when you have traumatic brain injury or some very complicated neurological issues, it can take 6 hours. Might have to do it over a couple of days. But usually it's one session. And there are thousands and thousands of combinations of color. Some people have different colors in each eye. They have many layers. You can have 7 or 8 layers of color. So it's extremely fine-tuned. It's the only system that I know of, and I've used other colored filters and lenses from other companies. This is the only one that has the fine-tunedness of thousands and thousands of shades of color. And we find which one the client reports creates the most comfort and clarity when they're reading and doing visual tasks. And also with the spectral filters, we can test going up and down stairs, catching a ball, tracking with the eyes. We look at different lighting issues and, you know, bright lights and lower lights and different kinds of lights. I have to have fluorescent lighting in my office to test for the noxious effects of fluorescent lighting. And also overall sensory processing. So it is used with people with autism, people with traumatic brain injury, with other neurological issues, and especially probably about 70% of my clients who come for these visual perceptual tests have chronic migraines and headaches along with other symptoms as well. It addresses light sensitivity and visual and sensory processing in all areas of functioning, including writing, copying, bright lights, sunlight, sports, driving, ADD, ADHD, depth perception, motor coordination. And I had a client with traumatic brain injury who had chronic migraines as well as motor coordination problems, and she thought it was a muscle strength problem because she had had a stroke. And it turned out that when we put the right color filter on her eyes, she could relax, she did not have as many headaches, and her legs were able to reciprocally move, and her gait actually changed immediately after years of physical therapy. Driving, memory, body tension, problem solving, phobias and anxieties. Many of my clients come because they're so tense, they have so much anxiety, and they're being treated by all kinds of for all kinds of psychiatric symptoms, and really the light is what is causing some of that anxiety because they are so overstressed. So this is a simple way to, and it's a non-toxic way because there's no medication way to test to see if this helps the person, and then if there are other symptoms to go on and address those symptoms in a more comprehensive way. But at least taking away the visual stress can actually make all those other therapies and interventions more effective. Spectral filters are more precise with thousands of combinations of colors and layers of colors. A certified Erlen diagnostician has a master's degree or higher, and we have to go through a very, very extensive training course, and we have to keep up our training with continuing education. One of the reasons for screening would be to identify people with scotopic sensitivity syndrome or light sensitivity and that have their issues. If their issues are light sensitivity, we can address that. We want to determine whether they have severe, moderate, or slight symptoms and see which intervention would provide the best option and which colors. We also create awareness of the symptoms. So a lot of people don't have a language. They come to me and they say, I don't know what it is. I'm just so tense. Every time I get into fluorescent lighting, I get so spacey, or I get nauseous, or I get headaches. But they don't really have a language for what's happening. And it could be that a lot of that anxiety is due to the fact that, you know, they're not seeing the floor as a flat floor, and they're constantly, their mind and their body are adjusting to keep their balance. But they don't notice that. They just notice there's an overall anxiety. So we try to get them to fine-tune as to what mental, physical, emotional, and energetic, the fatigue or the hyperness that they have, where is it coming from, when is it happening, and where in their body are they feeling it? And so we're educating the client, and then we're seeing when we implement the intervention, and I just don't use spectral filters. I use a lot of mind-body techniques. I use brain gym, and I have occupational therapy tools for sensory processing that I use, and I pull from a lot of different integrative approaches, as well as I work with other professionals. I work in a team, with people who need more intervention. And counseling, I may be working with clients on just how do you manage your stress? How do you want to be? Let's figure out ways to organize so that you don't get overstressed. So we're working on all kinds of other skills and communication skills. So once we take care of the stress, the person is able to more readily address other issues. Okay, so the overlays, some colors have no benefit. You'll know which color has the best benefit by the client reporting, whether how good they feel, whether their tension, the tension that leads to the headache, whether that's being alleviated. But the effect is immediate, and we can see it in one session, whether it's benefiting. But it may not take away all the symptoms, but it can decrease the discomfort that they're feeling and decrease the distortions that they're experiencing. Some colors are better than others. One color overlay or combination of overlays may minimize or stop distortions or discomfort. And then when the client uses the technology, they will report, and we have a tracking form where they use the technology, if it's the overlay, over a couple of weeks, and they track whether the migraines have lessened, whether they're not getting them at certain times of the day when they used to get them. So we look at tracking the symptoms so that we can see where the benefits are happening. And it's very inexpensive. It's $7. You can actually order the overlays from the Irlen website, but just know that when you order the overlays, you're not trained to be able to stress the visual system out, to be able to test to get the right and the best overlay. But quite often you can just put the overlays on and you'll see a benefit, but know that there is another fine-tuned, more precise way to do this, but at least it's better than nothing. And here we go. One of the benefits is being able to read for a lot longer amount of time with less headaches. Okay, the benefits of spectral filters are they're more convenient and effective. You just put on the glasses, put on the contacts. You don't have to worry about this plastic overlay. It's more than just reading, because a lot of people with Irlen syndrome have they're affected by light, not just from the reflected light, but reading is one symptom. They're affected by all light coming into the visual system. It provides benefits to daily functioning and mental, physical, and emotional health. So when you're less stressed out, when we can calibrate the nervous system so you're more relaxed, your immune system can function better. You can function better. You can think better. A lot of my clients will report that they hear better. They can communicate better because they're not constantly, stressed out, so they can't process what they're hearing. Improvements in sports, depth perception, driving, night driving, especially like the glare from the lights and the tension that people feel when they don't have depth perception at night, fatigue, working under fluorescent lights, copying, computer use, reading music, score, listening, writing, and more. They don't change the color of things, so they're not like sunglasses. When a person looks out of those lenses, white is white, colors are colors, and they should be pretty accurate. And if it feels like sunglasses, then we've gone too dark. We have to pull back. And one of the neurologists that my clients saw said, "Oh, don't go back to Mrs. Shamberg. Your child, you can just go to the drugstore and buy a pair of colored sunglasses." So if you could buy a pair of colored sunglasses, Helen Irlen and the Irlen Institute would be out of business, and they've been around for about 25 years. It doesn't work. It just makes things maybe a little bit more tolerable, but it doesn't calibrate the nervous system, and it doesn't give you that overall feeling of calmness and take away the distortions. And this is what a pair of spectral filters look like. Now, I don't know if that cat can report whether they're benefiting from them, but he sure looks like he's enjoying looking through them. Okay, here's some simple ways to test to see if your migraines or headaches are caused by light sensitivity. Okay, so if you minimize the use of bright or fluorescent colors, and that feels better, stripes, plaids, polka dots, if those bother you, then minimizing those, seeing the difference before and after, and glittery jewelry, buttons. So these are things that I would not wear. I would not wear stripes when I'm testing somebody, plaids, polka dots, jewelry, bright jewelry, because it would actually increase the symptoms of my clients. And some of my clients are so sensitive that even, the amount of light, if they have a little bit of light, it bothers them, and I can't test them. So some people actually don't realize how light sensitive they are till I decrease the light, and then I start adding a little bit of light. And you'd be surprised how many people are extremely light sensitive and never knew it. They were just constantly bombarded with this anxiety and didn't know that it was caused by the light that was stressing their eyes out. So if we reduce the lighting, we use incandescent or indirect lighting. So some people in offices will put their desks over toward a window, away from the fluorescent lighting, put up a divider, and then bring in lamps. And the lamps have dimmers so they can control the lighting. And that can make a big difference in terms of controlling your environment rather than the environment controlling you. There are some places that put theater gels over the fluorescent lighting so you have color, much less glare and brightness. And if you wear a visor, I don't have one here, but a visor or a baseball cap, sometimes that can shade the page while you're reading. Okay, now today we're getting a lot of whiteboards. Using brown or gray background would probably be less visually stressful. A blackboard or a green board is probably less visually stressful if you're a teacher or if you're working, in a place where you would be writing and presenting visual information. Using colored markers and chalk that are not so glary than white, and writing in columns. Okay, and using recycled or off-white non-glare paper, and trying just copying things on different colors and seeing which color background feels better to look at. And sometimes just eliminating that bright white background can decrease the stress of reading considerably. Okay, and you can also use the colored overlays on overhead projectors and computers. Some of the reading modifications are, where people have issues with things shifting and moving around on the page, so using graph paper for lining things up, a magnifying bar with the overlay attached to it with the color under it can help. A book stand where you have good posture and positioning, because if your posture and positioning is not good, that can actually cause visual stress. So having an angled, like an easel or what we call a book stand can actually help keep our posture correct and decrease the stress of looking down and then looking up, looking down and then looking up if you're in a classroom environment. And also looking down on the book can actually stress the neck and the vestibular system and the eyes and cause the eyes to have a difficulty getting back on track when you're looking up and then down all the time. Using dim lighting, avoiding fluorescent lighting. Okay, went through that. Testing modifications. So this is really important for young people who are in school or older adults who are still in school. I didn't get my occupational therapy degree till I was 36 and very stressed out. So having some of these testing modifications would have really helped me also to decrease some of the stress of tests. So duplicating tests on colored paper, also homework, and also visual information at work, colored plastic overlays over the tests, and using a ruler to keep on the line if you have a problem staying on the line. Writing on a test sheet rather than a Scantron sheet for like SATs, ACTs, and other standardized testing. Using natural lighting. Large print is easier, even when you have visual distortions, when you have large print. That's why a lot of people who come to me with Irlen syndrome are third grade and above. Why third grade? Because they're sitting less, they're moving around less, so they're sitting more, so the tension is increasing. The size of the typeset gets smaller, the amount of information on a page gets greater, so the visual stress gets greater. And third grade, it kind of bounces from second to third grade into catapulting into that higher level of learning and greater visual stress. And using assistive technology interventions such as word prediction software, drag and dictate, changing the color of the monitor background, and then using maybe a tape recorder for testing. And we have two books by Helen Irlen that are excellent, that explain the issues that I described in this presentation. One is called Reading by Colors, and the other is called The Irlen Revolution. You can get them by going to the irlen.com website or going to Amazon. And also looking, if you go to Facebook, there's the Irlen Visual Learning Center of Maryland Facebook page, which I post lots and lots of information. I'd love to have you join that Facebook page, as well as if you go to YouTube and you put in Erlen and Erlen syndrome or scotopic sensitivity syndrome, you'll find a lot of videos. You can also go to my website at www.irlenvlcmd.com and see lots of videos and client testimonials and download research articles. And if you're interested in the training, if anybody out there would like to become an Erlen screener, you can go to erlen.com and find a screening training near you, or come to Maryland and come to mine. And as well as I can present anywhere for you if you would like to sponsor a course. But it's a 14-hour course, and it's excellent. You really learn about the neurobiology of the visual system and visual perceptual issues, and how that impacts learning and behavior and work-related activity, and go through the whole process of learning how to become an Erlen screener and provide those overlays. So now I'd like to have you take, this is the self-test. This is available if you go to my website. You can download this. And if you are a practitioner, a massage therapist, a physical therapist, OT, special educator, psychologist, social worker, just giving your clients this self-test can tell you whether they might have Erlen syndrome or light-based issues. So let's try to take this together, and you see where you come up on the scale of having Erlen syndrome issues. Okay, do any of the following bother your eyes, head, or stomach, make you feel dizzy, tired, nervous, or anxious, or irritable? Okay, here we go. Reading textbooks for extended periods of time, reading on a computer for extended periods, working or reading under fluorescent lights, reading black print on high-gloss white paper, doing visually intensive activities like needlepoint, cross-stitching, woodworking, or crossword puzzles. Are you bothered by sunlight, bothered by glare outside, glare off chrome or cars? Are you bothered by glare off high-gloss white paper? And if you're especially bothered by textbooks and magazines, those are very high-gloss and very high-contrast white. Bothered by glare on hazy days, bothered by bright lights, bothered by fluorescent lights, bothered by headlights from oncoming traffic, bothered by certain patterns or stripes. I had one client come to me and she said, I'm coming to give myself a birthday present. I am so bothered by my husband's striped shirts, and he loves striped shirts. And if you can help me tolerate patterns, and especially my husband's striped shirts that he loves, I will be so happy. And this will be worth every penny. As well as when I go to the movies and I watch TV, the bright light that flashes from the screens really bothers me, and I get a headache and I get nauseous. So I would like to not have to feel that in my life. I function, but this would really give me some quality of life. And the lenses took care of it, and she was very, very happy. And I'm sure her husband was too. Are you bothered by bright or neon colors? Do you become tired or drowsy under bright or fluorescent lighting? Do you get a headache from fluorescent lighting? Do you feel antsy or fidgety when under fluorescent lighting? Does your performance deteriorate under bright or fluorescent lighting? Do you feel like there's too much light when reading? And even in a dark room, like my son has an eye injury and he wears Erlen lenses. He loves to read in the dark. So at home, he doesn't need his lenses. He reads in the dark. He can control the environment. When he's in school, when he's bombarded by fluorescent lighting everywhere, he was getting horrible headaches, and he was starting to feel pretty crappy in school and not wanting to be in school. And he didn't really understand that it was from the light. When he got his Erlen lenses, he realized, like, wow, this feels really good. So he only wears them in school. He doesn't wear them when he plays sports, and they're not, we would have to have special lenses for sports goggles, but he doesn't need them. He feels that it's just when he's reading under fluorescent lights that it really bothers him, and the lenses really help a lot. Do you feel like there's not enough light when reading? Do you read in dim lighting? Do you feel like you need less light to read? Do you frequently wear sunglasses? So if you answered yes to 3 or more of these questions, that may indicate that you have a light-based issue. You're what's called phototopic sensitivity syndrome, and we may be able to help you with just a simple intervention. And if you look at this and you start getting nauseous, and hopefully you're not looking at this long enough to get a headache, but this is one way that we can test to see if decreasing the contrast of this calms down this. So I can't show you the colors that we could put down over this, but that's one of the ways that we can test is by putting colored overlays over this or having you wear spectral filters, and then we see how much we can decrease the stress of looking at this. Okay, so now we're going to go, I want to get you out of this so I don't cause a headache there. We're going to show a video here. Let's see. I'm getting my technical information here. All right. So, and then I'll answer questions, but I want to show you this video. It's really pretty amazing to hear this parent talk about the difference in his child's performance, and I'll stop talking so you can see this for yourself. Thank you, and we'll be back.
Hi, I'm Kelsey's dad, and problems that my daughter had before she came to the Institute, she would get headaches. Her concentration was terrible. She couldn't do her math, her language, anything. And now that she's got her glasses,
when you say glasses, her Irwin-colored filters?
Okay, yeah. Her reading has improved 100%. She's getting A's in on her math test now, where she was getting D's and C's before. And all around, it's just made her, school just made her a lot better.
Headaches. How often was she getting headaches?
Every day.
And now, with her Irwin-colored filters?
Yeah, none.
None. Is she the only one in the family has this problem?
No, there's 2 others in the household that have this problem.
Who's that?
I'm one, and my other daughter is the.
And what did we give you to use until you get back to get your Irwin-colored filters?
The overlays, peach colors.
Yeah,
2 of them.
And how's that?
It works great. I have them sitting on my desk in my office, and I use them every day.
So what would you say to a parent who may want to know if they should bring their child in to get tested for the Irwin method?
I would say that they need to come in with an open mind, because I know a lot of people, like my wife, who think that it really doesn't work, that it's all in the head. You know, and where I was sitting here for her first time she was here, and everything they were talking about, I had the same problem and I didn't know it.
Yeah, but your wife doesn't.
That wife doesn't, yeah.
And that's why she doesn't get it.
Yeah.
And she doesn't believe.
Yeah. They need to sit and listen, and then all of a sudden the light will go off and say, hey, I have that problem too.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Okay. Hi, Kelsey. Kelsey, how old are you?
9.
Okay, I asked you to look at the page because you've had your Irwin-colored filters now for how long?
A month.
A month, okay. And in a month, you can forget what it was like. So I'm having you look at the page so you can remember what it used to be like and how it looked and how it felt when you used to read without your Irwin-colored filters. What happens?
It gets blurry and they dance around the page and you can't really see it.
And how does it feel?
It hurts.
When you say dance around the page, what do you mean by that?
They move around.
Okay. Let's pick a spot. Okay, so I'm going to have you do a little bit of reading first, the way it's always been for you, right? Okay, and then we'll put on the lenses and you can read some more.
Okay.
Okay.
One day, Bob took a trip to the zoo. First, he went to the great big lion house. he was a little frightened when the lions began to roar.
Okay, put on your glasses. And keep them on for a minute. And tell me when the words start to settle down.
They're starting to go back to their places.
They're doing what?
They're going back to the places they were.
Okay.
The roaring cages were clean, but the lions didn't seem to like them because they kept on walking up and down, roaring, switching their tails. Bob was glad that there was a strong fence around the lions. On the way out of the park, Bob stopped to watch the other animals. He saw a black wolf and a red fox in their cages. The keeper was feeding the wolf from the pail.
Okay, stop for a second. What's the number next to the paragraph you're reading?
3C.
3C. So that's third grade. That's where you were. And how was she doing in reading before?
She would miss words. She would read real slow. She would have to stop.
Just like we were hearing
Just
her.
like you were hearing right there. And the minute she got put them on, she just started reading like she's been doing it for ever.
So the change, you're saying she's had them for a month, but the change when she got her own filters took days, weeks, what?
Immediately.
It's an immediate
It
difference.
was an immediate thing. And within a couple of days, she came home and she was going, I like to read, where she never did before.
Right, and you said that the change is in reading, what other areas? is it?
Math.
Yeah.
Language.
Science, and history.
I mean, all of them. So,
Okay. And you said that, what about copying?
her copying she doesn't have to stop. She doesn't miss words anymore. When she has to copy something down, she copies it complete.
Okay. Kelsey, what's changed?
Mostly everything. I can read better, and it's fun reading now.
It's not just reading.
Math is easy, and so is science and history.
And how do you feel about yourself?
Happy.
So let me turn this around, Kelsey. So I have a page that looks like, a page that has lots of pluses and minuses, multiplications and divisions, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. What I want you to do is just take your finger and point to as many pluses as you can.
Wait, no, not that one.
Take off your glasses. And again, let's wait a minute and tell me when things start to happen or change.
There is no pluses.
Okay, let's point to the pluses.
I don't see any.
What's it like?
There's only times, division, and minus.
So you see times, division, and minuses, but no pluses.
No pluses.
Put your glasses back on.
There's a lot of pluses.
So Kelsey, tell me what happened then when you took off your glasses, because you used to do math. How did you do in math?
I was really bad at math.
And what happens to the signs then before you got your Irwin filters?
When we did plus, I'd say like 9 times that instead of 9 plus, because I can't see the plus signs. They turn to X's.
You were nodding your head.
Oh yeah, yeah. She said that when we would do her homework at night, I would say, okay, you can do these. And she would do it like, instead of 8 plus 8, it was 8 times 8. I'd have, 64 down. And I'm going, honey, it's just addition.
Oh my gosh. Oh. I am very sorry. I just stopped the video, not thinking that that was going to happen. Let's see if I can continue. Ooh. Oh dear. Okay, well, I'm hoping that you got the gist of the video. It is available on YouTube, and I think I cannot fast forward it. It would have to start all over again. So thank you for putting up with that. And the YouTube is, I can send you the link if you'd like. And I may be able to paste it on here. Yeah, here it is. So that's the YouTube link. But are there any questions that you want to add? And I'll go back over the questions. I just want to make sure you can hear me. So someone could just tell me that you're hearing my voice. Great. Okay, so let's go back through the questions. And okay. How often, this is from Pat, how often are typical migraines diagnosed? I was told I have them and my symptoms include facial droop on one side of my face. I also experience no pain with this condition. I don't know if anybody recently heard of the reporter that was reporting from, I believe, the Grammys or one of the award ceremonies, and that she started talking and slurring her words, and part of her face started drooping, and they thought she was having a stroke. If you go to YouTube, you can see the actual video of her, and it was actually a migraine. And I wish that I should have put that video up, but you can get that on YouTube, and it can actually cause a disconnect, almost, I don't know if it's a seizure, but it's sort of it's a neurological disconnect, and it can affect the person globally in terms of the way that their brain is processing information. So in that case, the person's the nerve in the face caused a droopingness, and it didn't last, but it can affect you. I don't know if you're light sensitive, so if you take the test and send it to me, I can go over it with you over email. But yes, drooping on one side can be a side effect of a chronic migraine, and you don't always have pain. True. How do you think reflexology would help with someone with this issue? If reflexology gives you relaxation, I think it could be wonderful. And massage therapy, acupuncture, all of those things, whatever works for you in terms of relaxing your body and balancing your body, and you'll know after a few sessions whether it's working. So yes, reflexology is another very, very good intervention. How could someone in Australia get the correct color filter? Oh, you are so lucky. Australia has many, many centers. Go on the Erland.com website, because this has really taken off in Australia. And in fact, if you cannot find a person in your local area, please email me and I will try to find you, because there are so many centers in Australia. I think there's more centers in Australia than there are in the USA. And so it should be pretty easy for you to access services in your country. Could schizophrenia ever be just Erland syndrome? I don't know. I mean, I have had clients with extreme anxieties and were diagnosed with schizophrenia because they had hallucinations, but those hallucinations were actually Erland syndrome distortions. And so with the lens, it actually decreased the symptoms so that they were not bothered by the distortions that were so-called their hallucinations. So I guess it should be carefully tested, and if a person's on medication, you don't want to take them off medication and put them on lenses without working with the doctor and the medical system, because that could be also dangerous if it isn't that issue. So we can test for that, and we can see whether the distortions are remedied by the spectral filters, and if they are, maybe with the doctor and the practitioner working together, the person can be weaned from less medication to maybe even no medication. I don't know. But you have to really be working in conjunction with a doctor with the more severe disabilities. Can you get a prescription in the spectrum filters? There are no prescriptions. You can have what's called CR39 tintable plastic lenses made with your prescription, whether it be bifocals or reading glasses or distance glasses. But they would have to be what's called CR39 tintable plastic with no coatings, no anti-glare coatings, no anti-scratch coatings. And then the Erlen labs would, after you've been gone through the testing with a diagnostician, they've determined the proper spectral filter prescription, which is not a real acuity prescription, it's just the spectral filter combination of color. Then that would be sent to the lab by your diagnostician with your glasses, and then we can tint in the lab your glasses, and then they're basically shipped to you directly. So if you don't have a problem, you only see that diagnostician once, and if the testing takes longer, maybe twice, but usually it's only one time and one testing session. And then you never really have to go through that initial diagnostic testing again, because you can upgrade the tint, it's called the retint, much less time, and you use the original tints. And sometimes things can change the tint color. So if you have a change in medication, you have a hormonal change, you have some sort of trauma that's occurred, that can change the color of the tint. So you may be wearing a specific color tint, and you may have to upgrade or just adjust the tint a bit to make it even more precise if you've had a change. And some of the tints can actually fade. So you want to be retinted every year, and it's, it only takes about an hour, and it's a much lower cost to have the lenses tinted. And if you keep your glasses in good shape without any scratches, you can just retint the same glasses for years. Okay, how much does it cost to become an Erlen consultant from LG? It depends on the training program. I mean, we have a specific fee, and you could go to my training website, which is www.aotss.com, and you can see the cost of the different trainings. So you really have to go to the individual Erlen screener diagnostician to see what training program costs are in your particular area. Okay, how do you wear, this is from LG, how do you wear the filters if you already have glasses on? I think I just explained that. I hope I did it well enough. And if you have any other questions, please just send them in. Okay. Any other questions? Oh, here. Okay, Chelsea. How do you think reflexology would help someone with Erlen syndrome? Okay. As I said before, it's worth a try. If it helps relax the nervous system, then it could help people with Erlen syndrome, and it could help chronic migraines and headaches. Okay. All right. From Chelsea, what is the difference between dyslexia and Erlen syndrome? Actually, Erlen syndrome is visual dyslexia. Very often, dyslexia is a host of other issues with auditory processing. Spectral filters may improve auditory processing, but if the main issue is auditory issues, then that may not be appropriate. So that's why we have these self-tests, so that they're free. People download them, they look at their symptoms, and if you have symptoms of visual dyslexia, you'll know it from those self-tests. And there's many self-tests. The one that I use quite often is the long form, which is 4 pages, and you can download that from my website, and you can check out the different symptoms. So it's another form of dyslexia. And quite often people are not tested to see whether light issues are exacerbating the symptoms of dyslexia. And when it is, we can help that and sometimes eliminate all of the symptoms or at least minimize some of the symptoms that are more bothersome. And you hear it immediately. The person is reading, you saw in the video, the person with the lenses immediately improves. And you hear it when they read out loud, and you see it in their body, and you see how more relaxed they are, and they report it. So you listen to your client as well. Is this related to a mitochondria disorder? The symptoms seem very similar. I would have to research that, but if there is light sensitivity in relation to the mitochondria disorder, I imagine that Erlen spectral filters could help. But you would have to take the self-test. I look at the symptoms and get a little background on the medical history, and then we see whether it's worth it to come in and look at the spectral filters as an option. Can migraines be a result of childhood head trauma? Of course. Any kind of trauma to the head puts the person at risk for migraines. And so taking care of if there's swelling in the brain, if there's some sort of adjustment that needs to happen, so cranial sacral, chiropractic, other forms of adjustment. But often the clients that I see, they became very light sensitive, and the migraines were exacerbated by that light sensitivity, and so we're able to help minimize some of the negative symptoms of that head trauma. And my next talk is going to be on traumatic brain injury and Erlen syndrome, as well as other interventions. Are you familiar with migraines causing brain lesions? I'm not sure. I mean, I imagine that there are brain hemorrhages that are when the brain hemorrhages, people do report, if they live through them, migraines, severe migraines and headaches. So, and they could be happening way before the hemorrhage actually happens. I would have to find out what the etiology and what kind of lesion you're speaking of. So I couldn't answer that exactly and distinctly, but I could, if you want to email me privately, I could get more information. Let's see. Does Canada have Erlen centers? Yes. Just go to the Erlen.com website, look for a test center near you. They're all over Canada as well. LG, let's see. SS or FS.com. Oh, did you see? I hope you saw that I wrote some of the .com website. So email. I mean, just send another note if I didn't address what you were looking for. Okay, Chelsea, if I were to go to an Erlen specialist for the first time, what would the session be like? Well, if you look at the slides, basically I said what we do. So basically the first time you go, if you have a reading issue, we can test for that 1.5 hour session, and you would be put through a series of visual perceptual tasks, and we would look at your symptoms and try to relate the symptoms to the tasks. And there's an Erlen protocol, which Helen Erlen, who is the creator of the Erlen method, she's a reading specialist, and if you read her book, you'll get the whole history and background of how she created and discovered this issue and how the remedy came about. She personally trained me. I think she trains many of the diagnosticians all over the world. And the session she created these tasks to visually stress the system enough so that it's not too much, so you're losing the person, their brain is shutting off. It's just enough to create the distortions without having a person read for hours to get those distortions, and then presenting the overlay to see what the benefits are. And so we would be looking at mental, physical, even emotional, energetic reactions, as well as functional issues like reading skills and fluency and accuracy and staying on the line. And so there's a whole bunch of different ways that we look at whether the technology is working or not. And the client sees it immediately, you can hear it immediately. How much for the diagnostic testing? Every diagnostic center and screener charges a different fee. So you would have to contact your local diagnostician or screener, and then they would be able to give you their prices. Do you recommend the long self-test for the mitochondrial disorder self-test? You know, you would have to really tell me more about the symptoms. And but yes, the long self-test gives a whole battery of different areas of function that light sensitivity would affect. So you just eliminate the ones that don't really apply to you, and then if you want to send me the form, and I'll go over it with you over email. What's my email address? Okay, so let me write it on here, and then also it's info@irlenvlcmd.com, and I will put it up here. Okay, there we go. Oh, the training. Okay, if you're looking for a training near you, you would go to irlen.com. If you'd like to come to my training, you would go to my website, and you can download the brochure, and you can see what the training's all about. And if you'd like to come to Baltimore, we're doing one April 3rd and 4th, and so you could email me and check it out, and I can tell you everything about the training that we're doing. Any other questions? Well, I want to thank everybody for coming. Thank you, and I hope you enjoyed the information. You know, this is, again, just the tip of the iceberg, and if you have any questions, you can email me at my email address, and also, you know, try reading the Helen Erlin's books, because they're very, very informative and helpful. And yes, there are many trainings in Australia, so just go to the irlen.com website and find out where the trainings are for you. So thank you so much, and hope you enjoyed this. Thank you, Dr. David. Thank you, Cherry, for all your help. And thank you, Building Strength Webinars.